reportedly kicking and screaming as the kidnapper grabbed her and threw her into his car. Neighbors are shocked.
It's a small community. Everybody knows each other. Everybody trusts each other.
I'm absolutely shocked. I mean, personally, I never expected anything like this to happen in the community like this.
Stanton, California, a quiet community nestled in Orange County, just 26 miles southeast of the Los Angeles skyline. Among the locals lived a vibrant young girl named Samantha Runnion. Her mother, Erin, worked as an analyst for British Petroleum, choosing the Smoke Tree condominiums for its family-friendly reputation. The complex was a bastion of suburban safety, a place where open garage doors served as social hubs and neighbors gathered to enjoy the afternoon sun. The area was always buzzing with energy, as local children frequently gathered in the central courtyard to play. Samantha was a constant presence there, often hiding behind corners to playfully surprise her mother after work. Her mother's rules were clear: stay within the boundaries of the courtyard at all times. Erin remembered her daughter as a compassionate, joyful child who embodied the very essence of innocence. On July 15, 2002, at 6:30 p.m., 5-year-old Samantha was playing with her friend, 6-year-old Sarah. While Samantha's grandmother kept watch from nearby, her mother and her partner were still at their places of employment. The two girls were engrossed in a board game when a green sedan slowly circled the block twice. A man stepped out of the car, claiming he was searching for a lost chihuahua and asking for help. When Samantha innocently inquired about the dog's size, the stranger suddenly grabbed her and forced her toward his car. She fought desperately, screaming for her best friend to run and get her grandmother for help. Within seconds, the kidnapper slammed the door and accelerated away, disappearing into the evening traffic. In one horrific moment, a predator shattered the peace of a community. We have live coverage on this abduction. Reports indicate the child was screaming and struggling as she was thrown into the suspect's vehicle. A massive manhunt is currently underway near the Smoke Tree townhomes, where the two girls were playing. At approximately 6:30 this evening, a suspect lured the children with a story about a missing puppy. As Samantha stepped closer to help the man, he snatched her and fled the scene instantly. Her grandmother was only yards away but saw nothing. The entire neighborhood remains in a state of shock. This is a bonded community where people trust one another. No one can imagine what monster would do this. To come right into their home, it is unthinkable. The sense of disbelief here is absolutely overwhelming. Personally, I never thought a tragedy of this magnitude could strike a neighborhood as safe as ours. Everyone here looks out for one another, making this heartbreaking event even more difficult to process. The atmosphere is heavy with collective grief. Samantha Runnion was born on July 26, 1996, to her parents, Derek and Erin. Following her parents' separation, Derek moved to Massachusetts, yet he remained a constant, loving figure in Samantha's life. He spoke of his deep love for her, treasuring every letter and the precious time they spent together. Samantha had a passion for sunflowers, superheroes, and the world of Disney's Hercules. She was a brilliant child who had just completed first grade, sleeping every night under a poster of her hero. A massive investigation was launched immediately, fueled by a desperate need to bring her home safely. The abduction was particularly chilling because it happened in broad daylight, just steps away from her own front door. Investigators knew that with every passing minute, the window of opportunity was closing rapidly. She was last seen wearing a white blouse, red checkered shorts, and pink sandals decorated with green frogs. Her family issued a tearful plea, begging the captor to show mercy and release their beloved little girl. They desperately asked for her safe return. Search teams and hundreds of volunteers mobilized for a manhunt that gripped the entire region with fear. A city that once felt like a sanctuary was suddenly cloaked in a dark, suffocating sense of danger. Despite the unimaginable horror she had witnessed, Samantha's young friend Sarah displayed incredible bravery. Even through the fog of trauma, she provided crucial details to help investigators find her friend. She provided detectives with a vivid profile of both the abductor and the light green sedan he used to vanish with Samantha. The witness recalled a man with slick-back raven hair and a dark mustache. That memory became the blueprint for a composite sketch broadcast to every screen in the state. Within hours, Police were stopping hundreds of cars that even vaguely matched the description she had provided. Her sharp memory transformed the investigation, providing the first vital clue in the desperate hunt for Samantha's kidnapper. Leads flooded the switchboards as this local tragedy quickly captured the attention of the entire nation. The brazen daylight abduction shattered the community's sense of peace, leaving residents shaken to their very core. Terrified parents questioned their safety while the world held its breath, praying for a miracle with everything they had. But 24 hours into the nightmare, those remaining flickers of hope were violently extinguished. A frantic 911 call came from a hang glider who spotted something chilling in a wooded area. The location was near Lake Elsinore, at the crossroads of Killing Truck Trail and Ortega Highway, 50 miles away. The caller was audibly traumatized, struggling to find words. "Oh my God, we found a body. Please hurry. I'm terrified. It's a child, a baby," he sobbed. "I think it's that little girl from the news." He apologized through tears, mentioning his own 3-year-old. "Please hurry. I'm scared and I need to leave." As his panic surged, the operator pleaded with him to stay as calm as he possibly could. Homicide detectives were racing toward the remote scene as fast as their engines would allow them. Despite the massive search, their darkest fears were realized. It was the body of young Samantha Runnion. She had been sexually assaulted and suffered 2 devastating blows to the head, causing her brain to swell. The medical examiner concluded she died from mechanical asphyxiation through neck compression, with blunt force trauma contributing significantly. Additionally, the pathologist could not determine what exactly caused the compression to her neck. The killer had posed her body in a graphic, sexually suggestive manner, signaling the depravity of a predator. FBI agent Richard Garcia later remarked that the staging suggested a deeply disturbing message from the killer. It wasn't hidden. It was left like a calling card, a challenge saying, "I'm here and I'm coming back." This led investigators to believe the monster would certainly strike again. Estimates placed her death between 8 p.m. on July 15th and 2 a.m. on July 16th. Samantha was a week from turning 6. Erin had already bought Lincoln logs, a puzzle, and a Barbie dress. Samantha's grandmother officially identified the remains through crime scene photographs. Sheriff's officials hoped the quick discovery would yield significant forensic evidence from both the scene and the body. They believed these clues would lead them directly to the person responsible for this nightmare. Over 500 FBI agents joined the case as the hunt for a kidnapper became a murder investigation. The search for a cold-blooded killer was now officially underway. Facing the media, Orange County Sheriff Michael Corona took a hauntingly direct approach. He warned the killer directly, "Don't sleep, don't eat, because we are coming after you." He vowed to use every available resource to bring the perpetrator to justice. While his words targeted the suspect, it was the residents who found themselves unable to sleep. Garage doors that once stayed open were now firmly shut and bolted. The connected community retreated behind locked gates, replaced by a haunting silence on every property. Despite 2,000 tips, police still needed the breakthrough that would finally ease the public's fear. It came from the friend who witnessed the abduction. Her sketch of the abductor was now everywhere. A woman named Tammy recognized that face and contacted police, providing the name they had been searching for. She suggested the man in the drawing was a local individual named Alejandro Avila. The 27-year-old stood 6'2" and bore a striking resemblance to the composite sketch. Ending a relentless 4-day manhunt, Orange County deputies finally moved in to arrest him. Interrogated for 12 hours, he was finally booked for kidnapping and murder. To help honor Samantha Runnion, please subscribe, ring the bell, and share her story. At 5:18 p.m., a simple cash withdrawal in Lake Elsinore became the first link in a haunting forensic chain. He lived on Riverside Drive with his sister Alvivera, while his mother Adelina resided just 10 miles from the crime scene. On the fateful afternoon Samantha vanished, Alejandro was expected to be home preparing a family meal. Instead of cooking dinner at 6 o'clock, he spent the evening traversing the highways of Southern California. Financial records proved he pulled cash from a Bank of America ATM in Lake Elsinore at 5:18 p.m. Over the following hours, his movements traced a dark and wandering path across the region. He made 2 separate stops for fuel before checking into a Comfort Inn just before 9 o'clock. To verify the timeline, Detectives recreated his route 1 week later, starting at the exact moment of his withdrawal. They paused at the Smoke-A-Tree condominium complex where Samantha was snatched and other points of interest. This included the location where her body was discovered and both service stations he visited that night. As investigators retraced his journey through the shadows, the digital breadcrumbs began to align. The total distance from the bank to the hotel, including all key stops, measured exactly 202 miles. Driving time was calculated at 3 hours and 24 minutes, or 3 hours and 40 minutes with stops. This timeline placed him at the Smoke-A-Tree complex during the abduction and the dump site before the hotel. During the reconstruction, detectives reached the condominium complex at exactly 6:17 p.m. Following his exact stops, they arrived at the Comfort Inn at 8:57, matching the events of July 15th. His sister later admitted he was intimately familiar with the remote area where Samantha's body was found. She even recalled a night they had visited that specific location together to watch a meteor shower. Following the disappearance, Alejandro claimed to his sister that he had spent the previous day at the beach. She noticed a fresh wound on his knee, which he blamed on a plastic baby gate at their home. However, she knew that gate was made of smooth plastic, lacking any sharp edges to cause such an injury. Authorities state they have amassed a mountain of physical evidence, including DNA, linking Ayala to the murder. His 1994 Ford Thunderbird matched witness descriptions, and his tires matched tracks at the scene. Forensic analysis confirmed the vehicle's tires were consistent with the impressions found near Samantha's discarded body. Inside that car, technicians discovered DNA that matched Samantha's genetic profile with terrifying precision. The match was so rare it would occur in fewer than 1 in 1 trillion individuals. Alejandro's DNA was also found under Samantha's fingernails, a 1 in 600 million probability. This genetic evidence pointed to a desperate, violent struggle between the young girl and her predator. Near her body, investigators found tire tracks alongside shoe prints and a single, distinct footprint. A search of his home yielded several pairs of shoes, though none matched the prints at the scene. Yet, security footage from a gas station that night captured him wearing a specific pair of athletic shoes. Store records proved he purchased those exact shoes, size 12, in September 2001. While the empty shoebox remained in his apartment, the footwear itself had mysteriously vanished. Concerns mounted when detectives learned he had previously been tried for the sexual abuse of 2 children. His mother insisted those past charges were lies concocted by a vengeful former girlfriend. She argued his current arrest was fueled by old biases rather than any new, concrete evidence. She maintained her son was a man of character, incapable of committing such a monstrous act. "My son is innocent of these claims," she told investigators with unwavering conviction. She described him as a gentle soul who had been hyper-cautious since his previous legal battle. "He is never aggressive and is wonderful with small children," she insisted during her defense. She admitted seeing scratches on his legs but maintained the baby gate was the sole cause. Claiming he was being persecuted, she provided an alibi, stating he was shopping at a local mall. Alejandro echoed his mother's claims, flatly denying any involvement in the young girl's disappearance. He insisted he was miles away, browsing shops at the exact moment Samantha was snatched away. His mother recalled watching the news coverage of Samantha's disappearance with him, moments before the law finally caught up. The weight of the evidence eventually told a story that no alibi could erase. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share to honor the memory of Samantha. The crowd didn't want justice. They wanted vengeance, demanding he be bound and burned alive. When the electric chair was mentioned, many scoffed, claiming such a quick end was far too merciful. Sheriff Corona stood firm, declaring with absolute certainty they had finally captured the right man. Visible emotion cracked his voice as he addressed the predator directly. "I promised we'd hunt you down." He warned that any doubts about their resolve were gone, proving the department was indeed deadly serious. Outside Samantha's home, a heavy silence fell as a massive crowd gathered to honor her memory. The sidewalk transformed into a sanctuary of teddy bears, handwritten cards, and flowers for the lost child. 250 people joined hands in prayer as Samantha's mother, Erin, watched through a haze of grief. Sobbing, she pleaded with the community to keep a watchful eye on one another during this nightmare. She begged every parent to shield not just their own, but every child walking these streets today. Her husband Derek's voice broke as he implored everyone to never let their children out of sight. He confessed that every sunrise and every sunset would now be haunted by the memory of her. He whispered, "I love you, Samantha. I miss you." Detectives worked to uncover if Alejandro had stalked the apartment complex long before the abduction. A witness named Lewis provided a lead to the press. The foster brother of the suspect's ex claimed Alejandro scouted the area before. He allegedly targeted the woman's 11-year-old daughter, leaving the mother in terror of his intentions. She believed her baby was his original target. Instead, he snatched Samantha when that plan failed. Avila faces murder and kidnapping charges, with the death penalty now a very real possibility. The Orange County District Attorney delivered a final, unwavering promise of retribution to the cameras. He vowed the man will die in a cell or face execution. Subscribe, bell, and share Samantha's story. The cathedral overflowed with mourners of every age, all arriving to offer a final, haunting goodbye to Samantha. "Nothing returns our baby," Erin whispered while fighting back his tears. Solace came only from the integrity of the case and the love for her life. "We are deeply moved by the compassion the world has offered Samantha. Her family knew her brilliance, yet never imagined her legacy would be born from death." Alejandro Avila's trial promised to be a traumatic, grueling ordeal for every witness involved. Prosecutors used phone and bank records to trap him in the area of the kidnapping. His DNA was found under her nails. Zaluki then opened for the defense. Attorney Philip Zaluki argued the genetic evidence linking his client was fundamentally flawed. He claimed the samples under Samantha's nails were contaminated by improper collection. Zaluki cited witness inconsistencies, alleging investigators unfairly targeted his client from the start. Assistant District Attorney David Brent addressed the press regarding these bold claims. Brent called the theory of planted evidence an outlandish and desperate fabrication. Judge William Froberg admitted testimony from 2 girls involved in Alejandro's 2001 case. A third survivor was also permitted to testify about the abuse she suffered. One witness was the young daughter of a woman he once dated. She described being abused at age 7 while her mother worked through the night. This happened repeatedly over a year. She also saw him abuse her cousin. He walked free previously, as it was only their word against his physical silence. His sister recalled watching the movie Double Jeopardy when he made a chilling confession. He allegedly bragged he could harm a child and escape justice via legal loopholes. His ex detailed his preference for junior clothes, finally sealing his dark legacy. Justice for Samantha was no longer a hope, but a mandate. To support Samantha's legacy, please subscribe, hit the bell, and share her story. The mask finally fell when a roommate testified that after Alejandro moved out, he discovered a sickening cache of illegal child imagery in the bedroom. Subscribe and bell for Alejandro. A third victim stepped into the light, recounting a nightmare that began when she was only 11. He issued a terrifying ultimatum: stay silent or blood would be spilled. Investigators allege Samantha was executed in a cold-blooded effort to silence her and hide his depravity. Securing a formal search warrant, detectives seized a computer from Adelita's home, despite her sworn testimony that it was clean. Subscribe, bell, and share Samantha's story. A digital trap. Her mother was offline, while Alejandro stalked the web. Subscribe, bell, and share for her justice. A forensic expert dissected the hardware, uncovering a sickening gallery of children subjected to a wide variety of unthinkable sexual abuse. Though deleted, a specialist successfully resurrected these haunting secrets from the digital void. At 4:43 a.m. on July 14th, 2002 hours before Samantha vanished, this computer printed a horrific account of child abuse. This evidence finally secured a conviction. Please subscribe and hit the bell for Samantha. The digital mask finally slipped. Detectives unearthed the haunting chat log from that computer, linking girl lover to a contact in Finland. Subscribe and hit the bell to help bring justice to the victims of this case. Both men confessed to a depraved, shared preference for girls under 12. A contact in Finland curiously asked what it was really like living in California. A predator boasted of mountain isolation 4,000 feet up, where any horror could be done to children. Following 9 grueling hours of deliberation across 2 days, the jury of 8 men and 4 women finally reached a unanimous decision. 30-year-old Alejandro Avila was found guilty of the kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder of young Samantha. As the clerk read the verdicts aloud, Erin gasped and collapsed into a state of raw, agonizing grief. 2 jurors wept openly, one rocking slowly as the trauma of the evidence took its toll. At the defense table, Alejandro sat hunched between his attorneys, staring downward without emotion, while even his public defender was seen weeping. The court will reconvene next Wednesday for sentencing. Subscribe, bell, and share for Samantha. The jury wait his fate, the executioner's needle or a slow, silent rot behind bars. Subscribe, bell, and share to honor the memory of the victims. A monster is finally caged, yet for this mother, the nursery remains a haunting, silent void. Other children remain targets until we act. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share to honor her name. I am pleading with every soul watching to help us finally halt these horrific atrocities against our children. Beside Erin stood Sheriff Michael Corona, visibly struggling to mask his heartbreak while honoring her incredible resilience. He thanked her for showing grace toward the department, for failing to bring her home, and for welcoming them into her grieving family. His ex-girlfriend declared justice had finally arrived for both her daughter and little Samantha Runnion. She believed he was hunting her daughter that day near the Runnion family home. To her, he was clearly there specifically to stalk her own daughter. She recalled warning jurors years ago that his dark obsession would eventually lead to another tragedy. On Larry King Live, Erin condemned every juror who prioritized a predator's word over a child's. Reflecting on that legal failure, Superior Court Judge Robert B. Spitzer told the Los Angeles Times that evidence beyond the children's word was tragically lacking. Prosecutor Paul Dickerson admitted the acquittal haunted him, knowing he'd done everything to convict a man he knew was guilty. With a conviction finally secured, the trial moved into its haunting final chapter, the sentencing. That Wednesday, jurors faced a grim choice: life behind bars or the death penalty. Confronting the murderer, Erin spoke of the desperate struggle for life in Samantha's final moments. She spoke of those beautiful brown eyes and the monster who saw them and still killed. Defense lawyers begged for mercy, citing an impulsive nature born from a childhood of trauma. Alejandro's youth was defined by a cycle of instability and brutal violence. In 1989, his father Rafael was arrested for child abuse, shattering the home. Rafael later killed a neighbor when Alejandro was only 17. He pleaded to manslaughter. Later, Juan was found shot dead in Mexico. To honor Samantha Runnion, subscribe, hit the bell, and share her story. Inside the courtroom, his legal team described a family history defined by extreme poverty and deep sexual trauma. Despite the defense detailing a lineage of systemic dysfunction, the jury rejected their plea and recommended a sentence of death. The judge concurred, noting that the predator's depraved impulses had permanently shattered the foundation of an innocent family. He has now forfeited his right to exist. 9 of the 12 jurors returned to the gallery to witness the final, heavy hand of justice descend. For these citizens, the trial's most harrowing moments involved the graphic photographs documenting Samantha's brutal injuries. Jury foreman Terry Dancensey later admitted that those crime scene images were almost too much to endure. The evidence was soul-crushing. If anyone ever truly earned the death penalty, the jury felt this man had. He asked them to imagine that tiny girl alone on a hillside, certain that someone would find her. Help never arrived. Following Samantha's death, Governor Gray Davis mandated an immediate, massive expansion of the state's child abduction alert protocols. This ensured that emergency broadcasts would pierce the night across every electronic billboard on California's vast freeway system. Sheriff Michael Corona would later confirm that the initiative proved to be a devastatingly effective shield. Every one of the 47 alerts issued under the new system resulted in a child coming home safely. Alejandro filed a desperate appeal with the California Supreme Court, hoping to overturn his conviction and escape his fate. His lawyers argued that media saturation made a fair trial impossible and cited numerous procedural errors by the judge. They specifically challenged the refusal to change venues, but the High Court stood firm, upholding the original sentence. The justices ruled that the trial was untainted by bias, finding the evidence of his guilt to be absolutely overwhelming. The law remained resolute, affirming both the conviction and the gravity of the punishment. Erin Runnion looked at the thousands weeping for her daughter and saw a force that could protect others. She urged them to channel that raw grief into a movement that would shield children who are still with us. That mission became the defining purpose of her life. Over 100 young lives have been rescued since California debuted the revamped Amber Alert system. Among them was Tamra Brooks, who only recently learned the tragic history behind the alert that saved her. It breaks my heart knowing such a massive sacrifice was required to save my own life. It is devastating that it often takes such horrific tragedy to produce a greater protective good. Erin hopes her daughter's legacy empowers children to be brave and gives them the tools to escape if approached. In the quiet years that followed, she transformed her immense sorrow into a powerful engine for advocacy. She founded the Joyful Child Foundation as a living, breathing monument to the daughter she lost. Her organization builds community safety networks and conducts vital research into preventing repeat offenses by violent predators. Their programs focus on a wide spectrum of child protection initiatives and the prevention of future abuse. Information regarding the vital mission of the Joyful Child Foundation is available through the link provided below. Erin remains steadfast, stating she will never forgive the atrocities committed against her child. She believes only Samantha can offer that, though she has acknowledged the broken childhood that shaped her killer. She sat through the harrowing testimony of his early life, listening to the horrors he suffered as a child. Despite stories of him being bound and beaten, she maintained that trauma is never an excuse for murder. Yet, she understands that we must safeguard every child to prevent the next generation of victims and predators. I share this history because while society labels these killers as monsters, we must confront the cycles of violence. In her journey, Erin found a kindred spirit in Jan Sepich, mother of Katie Sepich, whose story we previously shared. Jan and Dave Sepich fought for the federal passage of Katie's Law, a legacy for their own daughter. This legislation provides the funding needed for states to collect DNA samples upon the arrest of any violent felon. Previously, the system waited for a conviction, often allowing dangerous predators to remain unidentified while at large. Erin was deeply touched to learn that her own advocacy had given Jan the strength to keep fighting. Together, these mothers have turned their private grief into a public shield for children everywhere. 5-year-old Samantha Runnion left a legacy so luminous it reached far beyond the quiet courtyard where she once played. A brilliant, courageous child whose spirit saves lives. Subscribe, ring the bell, and share Samantha Runnion's story to protect children. One moment shattered a family, yet from that darkness, a legacy rose. We must never forget the young girl who stood beside her. Despite her trauma, that child's bravery set the entire investigation in motion. Her memory was a beacon, guiding detectives toward a grim truth. Erin Runnion marched from Sacramento to Washington, demanding laws change. She has endured this work for 20 years because others cannot. For as long as she can, she remains a voice for Samantha and every child needing protection. Her foundation successfully passed vital legislation protecting kids from predators everywhere. It is a comfort knowing children are now safe because of her. Erin transformed her unbearable grief and anger into a sacred mission. Through her foundation, she built a nationwide movement to keep kids safe. Thousands now learn to identify danger and trust their own survival instincts. Law enforcement and volunteers now stand united in a massive network. Every lesson shared and every child reached keeps Samantha's spirit alive in the strength her mother found. Samantha made us safer. Please subscribe